Welcome to the Small Business Sessions podcast from Enterprise Nation's Business Connected training program and our partners Vodafone Business, Constant Contact, Dropbox and JP Morgan. In this week's episode, I'm joined by entrepreneur and investor Richard Harpin. Richard is best known as founder of home assistance company HomeServe, but his entrepreneurial journey began at an early age. That included selling rabbits at the age of 6 and running a fishing fly tie company which earned him enough for the deposit on his first house. Over a 30-year period, Richard grew HomeServe into a FTSE 100 listed business with thousands of employees serving millions of customers around the world. In 2023, he sold the company to Brookfield Asset Management for £4.1 billion and he stayed on as chair of HomeServe EMEA. Alongside his chairmanship, he invests in other entrepreneurs via Growth Partner, and in 2023 he acquired Business Leader, a platform and membership community supporting mid-sized firms. With Richard's immense entrepreneurial experience, this is a podcast you don't want to miss. Well, Richard, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Great to see you.
My pleasure. Good to be here, Dan.
Brilliant. So first of all, before we get on to all your entrepreneurial ventures, take me back, because entrepreneurship started at quite a young age for you. Was it age 6 selling rabbits? Did I read that?
It was. And I think maybe half of entrepreneurs are born entrepreneurs and the other half fall into it in later life. And I was certainly somebody that started early and breeding New Zealand white rabbits. And then I was listening to my customers and they said, what are we going to do with our rabbit when we go on holiday? And so that was a cross-sell opportunity and set up a rabbit kennels by the age of about 8. And I was not a very confident kid, thought I need to train myself to be more confident, and became a children's magician, Ricardo of the North.
Wow.
And I think that helped me in terms of building confidence, and that's important in business.
Yeah. I love how you say age 6 selling rabbits. I listened to my customers as a 6-year-old. That's brilliant. And I believe you also, was it a fishing related business you started that allowed you to get a deposit on your first house, that business?
Yeah, I think this was age 12. And when most other kids were making Airfix plastic models, I wanted to do something that I could make and sell. And so started tying flies for fly fishermen and selling them back to the fishing tackle shop and to other fly fishermen. And but the issue was that I thought it's a fishing tackle shop, they're making money, and I could cut them out and set up my own mail order fly tying materials business. So this was in the days pre the internet, and that's what I did. And again, back to proving the consumer demand was there and doing the market research, I placed an ad in Trout and Salmon magazine and said, if you'd like my mail order catalogue for fly tying materials, then ring for a copy. And I hadn't actually got one at that stage, but I got enough calls to convince myself that I should get into the mail order fly tying material business, printed the catalogue, and the business worked. But that was my market research done. That's
amazing. I mean, you've touched on it already, but there's plenty of lessons then you've carried through your life, I guess, from those early businesses, even at the age of 6.
I think the first one was sort of pivoting to what's the right business model. And back to the mail order fishing tackle business, the bit I enjoyed most was going to the National Game Fair. 100,000 fishermen descending upon my stand, selling them the fly tying materials and the ready tied flies. And it was there, again, I was listening, and the wives and girlfriends and sisters of all these fishermen said, ooh, those flies would make really nice earrings. So it was off with the end of the hook, on with kidney wires, and I was into the high fashion earring business. I was going to call these things danglers, and somebody said, can't do that, Richard. It infers something unseemly and organic, and proceeded to recommend that we call them hookers.
Right. Yes, I guess you didn't go with that either.
So we definitely went with that.
Oh, you did go with that,
with
right.
my £100 marketing budget. Then the headline was hookers set to hit UK high streets. Okay. Sent that press release out to every TV station, every radio channel, every national newspaper, and it became a self-fulfilling craze. teenage girls rushing out to buy these hookers earrings at 99p a pair. And the business did really well for about 9 months.
Okay. That is amazing. That's such a good story. Why do you think you were so entrepreneurial at such a young age? Was it something about your upbringing that encouraged it? Or were you, I don't know, what do you think it was?
It was, I was born in Huddersfield in West Yorkshire, lived on a little cul-de-sac. And one day when I was age 4, I remember my father putting me on his shoulders and we'd look over the wall of the big house at the end of the cul-de-sac and watch the helicopter land on a Sunday. I remember saying, Dad, I want one of those. And he said, well, don't be in the civil service earning a pittance like me. You better run your own business.
Right.
I found out a few years later it was Lord Hanson flying in to have Sunday lunch with his parents who lived in that big house at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Right.
So that's what drove me from an early age. I wanted a helicopter.
That's good. It's good to have a goal. That's so true. You decided what your goal was. Well, obviously now let's transport back to how HomeServe came about. Obviously that's the business you're most known for. Do you want to tell us the inspiration behind that and how did you get it off the ground?
Yeah, after those childhood businesses, still looking for the big idea, thought I'd better go and join a big company and learn about marketing and how to run a business properly. I went to join Procter & Gamble, based in Newcastle upon Tyne, and I was the marketing assistant on Fairy Liquid. That's why my hands are so
yes.
soft even today.
I remember that. I'm old enough to remember that ad.
But once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. I wasn't content with just doing my brand management job at Procter & Gamble. So I was buying houses on the side, doing them up, letting them by the room to young professionals, £40 a week at the time. And do you know what the biggest problem was?
No, what was that?
Tenants calling on a Friday evening saying, there's water pouring out of a radiator, we've got a block drain in the backyard, or the boiler's broken down. We could not get a Geordie plumber for love nor money on a Friday night in Newcastle. Yeah. So my business partner and I said, that's the big idea. We'll set up an emergency plumbing service. And that was how HomeServe was started.
Amazing. So obviously you give a lot of advice now where you are, but who did you turn to for advice in those early days of HomeServe? If anyone? My
business partner, but we were both marketeers, and I think it can be really lonely as an entrepreneur. I remember my days at Procter & Gamble where there were 12 other graduates new to Newcastle, and we got a ready-made peer group. And I think as an entrepreneur, you don't sort of have that. And I think that's a really important thing to establish. It took me a long time before I realized that I should have a coach or a mentor. And it was 2010. HomeServe was doing okay in America. We'd been there 7 years, but really needed a bit of advice on how we could develop the business faster. And I came across a guy called Nigel Morris. He was the Brit, the co-founder of Capital One. And I emailed him, no response. Wrote to him, no response. Sent him a DHL package, urgent, confidential, no response. Anyway, one evening, 11 o'clock UK time, I thought, I'm going to call his office. Lo and behold, he answered the phone. And I said, I'm a struggling British entrepreneur trying to make it big in America, not quite working as I expected. Can I have an hour of your time? And he said, oh, I remember your name. I really apologize that I didn't respond to any of your letters or emails. Next time you're over in the US, I'll give you an hour of my time. I said, it just so happens, Nigel, I'm there tomorrow afternoon. And I wasn't. I got on the first flight out of Heathrow. Wow. And I was in his office in Washington, D.C., 2 o'clock the following afternoon. And he gave me 3 hours of his time.
Wow.
And asked me simple questions like, so where are you based over here? And who have you got running your US business? I said, we're in Miami because we rent an office from our insurer, and they were based in Miami. And I wanted to keep the costs down. He shook his head and said, definitely shouldn't be here. If you want to be a serious American business, you need to be based between Boston, New York, and Washington, D.C. And he was right. All the people we hired in the early days either wanted to go to the beach at 4 o'clock or smoke dope.
Right,
and we needed serious Americans to run the business. And then he also said, you need an American that's the chief exec. We had a great Brit that was doing a really good job, but wasn't taken as seriously as an American. So I hired a guy called Tom Rooson in 2010 when HomeServe US was making $10 million. Last year, the business made $250 million profit, and Tom is still there running it.
Wow. So that advice was that 3-hour meeting was a crucial point then, was it, for you? Yeah,
so I think it's really, really important that everybody has a mentor or coach. Over the years since then, I've changed them depending upon what the issue or opportunity was that I was trying to tackle.
Right. So do you think that was a massive driver then in the success of HomeServe to what it's become?
I definitely think it helped in terms of getting the model right in America. Another example would be when I was acquired Checkatrade and didn't know anything really about digital marketing platforms. And so I went out and got some help from Steve Kofer, who was the co-founder of TripAdvisor, Scott Forbes, the American chairman at the time of Rightmove, just so that I could understand how other relevant business models operated.
I guess that just shows you, if you don't ask, you don't get, didn't it? But do you think, entrepreneurs should just, do you get calls yourself from people, I guess, asking you for advice?
I do, and I think it's really important. And I trained last year, dedicated 12 days of my time to becoming a qualified business coach at INSEAD. And that's meant I can apply all of my business experience, all the mistakes that I've made over the last 30 years or so, combined with business coaching to be able to help others.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. So on to kind of some of the things that you sort of now teach to other people. So omni-channel strategy is one of the things you're a big believer in. Do you want to explain what that means and why you think it's so important?
Yeah, I would call it bricks and clicks and paper. And you might feel that sounds a bit odd in this digital world, but really important that online businesses have a retail presence. So a great example of that would be Warby Parker, which is a American opticians business. They started online, and a bright spark round their board table said, how about if we opened a retail store? Everybody else said, no, we're online only. It would increase the costs. Anyway, they did, and it worked. They put a picture of the store and the address on the website, and lo and behold, the conversion rate of web visits to completed sales went up from 3% to 5% because they'd now got the credibility of having a store in New York. And actually the number of people going online also increased. Right, so it was a win-win.
Right.
I also think that paper's really important. And in Checkatrade, we put out 16 million A4 folded leaflets to different households, different one for every 50,000 households. And they now go out 6 times a year and generate about 15% of our total web inquiries.
Really?
So that's a good example of paper generating clicks, as well as people calling the trades that are listed in that paper directory. If you look at people that buy online only, and then people that buy in store only, and then those that do both, the most valuable and the most loyal customers are the ones that do both.
Right.
So you've got to provide all of that.
So you think then, all the struggles of the high street, then you still see that having a physical presence is quite important. I mean, I guess where there's less of it, it makes you, I suppose you can stand out, can't you?
Yeah, I think it's important that those retail stores make money in their own right. But a key part of retailing is it builds your brand at no other marketing cost than the cost of your rent and rates.
Absolutely. So you've got your 8 secrets to building a £1 billion business. One of your pieces of advice is hire your replacement, which is such a great tip. So what do you want to explain what you mean by that? And it's about appointing somebody to replace you.
I think us entrepreneurs don't make very good chief execs. We end up having too many ideas, not focusing on the core business model. And so I was 8 years into HomeServe before I found a guy called Jonathan King. He joined HomeServe from Boots in Nottingham as business development director. Within a year, I thought, do you know what? I think he'd make a much better MD for HomeServe UK than I would. And that was when we only had a UK business. So promoted him, gave him my job. That then meant that I could work on the business rather than in the business, and meant that I could start focusing on, I wonder whether HomeServe would work in a foreign country.
I guess that's the letting go thing, though, isn't it? Some people will find that quite tough, isn't it? Giving somebody else that power. I suppose we've got to do it, haven't you? Like
the person who did it the most quickly, only 3 years after setting up his business, was Ben Francis at Gymshark.
Right.
And he hired a guy called Steve Hewitt out of Reebok. And 5 years after that, Gymshark was worth its first £1 billion. So really important to have a chief exec that has hopefully got some experience of ideally having done it before. We had an expression at Procter & Gamble on recruitment: has done, can do, will do. And I think that's the magic formula.
Big thanks to Vodafone Business for sponsoring this podcast. VHub from Vodafone Business has supported over 1 million SMEs, providing expert advice on a range of topics that matter to small business owners everywhere. Access VHub for a free one-to-one consultation with an expert advisor and get support tailored to your business. Book your free consultation with a VHub advisor today. Find more details at vodafone.co.uk/VHub. Another thing, obviously, you got the business to thousands of employees, millions of customers, and building a team is a big thing for entrepreneurs from that first employee and hopefully to 1,000. So, what's your advice for building a team, particularly when you've got teams in different parts of the world?
Yeah, I think the key bit is if you want to be a serious international business, then you need to have a local presence. And you should start by going and hiring your general manager or chief exec for that country. And then if you've hired the right person, they're going to then hire the right team. And their direct reports will then hire really good people below them. So that's the magic recipe.
What about focus? Like when you're growing a business, you've got all this stuff going on and you've grown these massive businesses now. How do you maintain focus and productivity and, on it? What's your advice on that?
I think I didn't in the very early days and tried to do too much. What I've learned now is that you need to have a clear mission and strategy. And let me just talk about how you could do that and maybe do it with your own management team. So if you imagine 3 concentric circles, and the first one is, what are you passionate about in your business? Normally that would be your purpose. Secondly, what can you be the best in the world at? Doesn't need to actually be in the world. It could be, if you only operate in the UK, then what can you be best at in the UK? What's your unique selling proposition? How are you going to be better than your competitors? And then third concentric circle is, how are you going to make money? What is your economic engine? So what you then need to do is answer those 3 questions in a sentence of no more than 20 words. And that will then write it down, communicate it to all of your team internally, and they need to then assess what they're doing in their job today, tomorrow, this week, this month, this year. And if they're doing something that doesn't fit with that mission and strategy, then they should stop doing it. They should have a not to do list. So a good example of a mission and strategy, we've just done it within Business Leader, which is a business that I own and operate. And there it is, we inspire our founder and chief exec members to fast forward their growth through facilitated learning and unique content. And perhaps we'll come on and talk about Business Leader, but
definitely. It's on my list.
That's our guiding mission and strategy. And it's really important to have one so everybody knows what they're doing and what they should not be doing.
I love that. Like you say, having it written down, and you can, that doesn't fit, stop. That's absolutely, and communicating it throughout the business. So yeah, absolutely. We will come on to Business Leader. That is something I want to talk about. But before we get on to that, obviously you're also an investor, which you do through Growth Partner. So as an investor, like what is it you look for when deciding to give somebody your money?
Yeah, it's a number of factors, and a lot of what we do is desk research on trawling through the Bowhurst database and a few other data sources that we use. And what we're looking for is fast growing businesses. Typically, they will have a revenue in excess of £10 million, and those businesses will be making between sort of £1 and £5 million of EBITDA. They will be in the consumer, retail, and leisure sectors mainly, which is our area of expertise. And the revenues will be growing at in excess of 50% a year. So those are sort of the overall criteria. But then we would never invest unless we're really happy with the founding team, because ultimately it comes down to can that business keep growing? Is it scalable? And that's all about the leader of that business. And if you look at the characteristics of those sorts of leaders, then it's what Jim Collins would call a level 5 leader. Low ego, determined for the business, not for their own career, persistent, they are curious, they want to learn all the time, they will listen, they'll do market research and really drive the business forward, and they will hire a really good team. Those are the sort of characteristics that we're looking for.
Do you get, like, what happens when people approach you though? Because I'm sure you get approaches. So then I guess that, and then that comes down to the pitch. Like,
yeah, we do get approaches. We get introductions, and we look at lots and lots of businesses, and very selective. Very often these businesses weren't out looking for money, but our message is this is one entrepreneur investing in another entrepreneur. So we're not typical private equity. We do have a team of 11 people that are helping look for the right businesses, but more importantly, bringing those businesses into our community, into our portfolio, and they're learning from each other. And then we do a lot to be able to help those businesses to drive their growth, from my experiences, from running masterclasses, from avoiding the mistakes that I've made. But it's always on the basis that it's show, but never tell. And in most cases, we're taking a minority investment. We want that entrepreneur to retain the majority holding in their business.
Yeah. What about if, when it comes to the pitch, the Dragon's Den? I know that's not really real, but you know what I mean. What advice would you give to founders on how to pitch, and maybe how not to pitch? What are some of the mistakes you see people make?
Yeah, and this is secret number 2: get an investor. And the key things are do it at the right time. So I did it always a bit too late when we sort of run out of money and we're desperate. So don't do it when your back's up against the wall. Secondly, it's not really so much about the money. It's about finding an investor with the right fit. Are they the right culture for you? Are they going to provide the right help and advice? Is it going to be show rather than tell? And I think in the actual pitch meeting, be concise, be enthusiastic, and be yourself.
And you said the team is so important. So what would you say to like solo founders? Would you recommend they get, if they're pitching you, that they've got, well, I guess if they got to the point they've probably got somebody else.
Yeah, typically. Yeah. So our businesses are profitable. They will have now started building their team. I'd say most of them won't have appointed their replacement, brought in a COO or CEO quite yet. One or two might have done that, but yeah, important that they start to build that management team.
Absolutely. So you mentioned it earlier. So about Business Leader. So that was a business you acquired recently. Do you want to explain what that is and what your like vision is for Business Leader?
I think too many people, when they've sold a business, retire or run off to their desert island, and hopefully you've heard that I've got a real passion for business.
Absolutely.
And so I wanted to, in a bit of time that I'd freed up by no longer being the full-time chief exec of HomeServe, I wanted to help other medium-sized businesses to become large in the way that I was very luckily achieved with HomeServe. And in this country, we focus very much on startups, which is great. There were 900,000 of those last year, but we also need to focus on scale-ups, and we're not very good at that in this country. So with Business Leader, what I wanted to do was, first of all, establish a framework, and those are the 8 secrets to how you build a £1 billion business. And then thought, how am I going to get those messages out there? So thought, I'll go and buy a business magazine. I don't mean a single copy from W.H. Smith's, but going and acquiring Business Leader. And we've improved the content. We're trying to make it more like Harvard Business Review. So it's doing 2 things. One is providing the inspiration. So other entrepreneurs that have built a £1 billion business, and there are 56 of those in the UK today. And then the how. How do I do it? There are 63 questions that medium-sized company leaders want to have answered, and we will hope to answer those. But underneath it all, Business Leader is a membership organization, and it provides a peer group, one of those things that I sorely missed as a lonely entrepreneur looking back over the last 30 years. So we will match those entrepreneurs up with 9 other chief execs and entrepreneurs. They will meet 8 times a year for 3 hours. There will be a facilitator coach that helps get the most out of that group. One-to-one coaching, including as part of the package. We do visits to other interesting businesses and meeting the founder, called Under the Bonnet. We run masterclasses, both in person and edited versions online. So it's a big community. So we want to be the biggest community of medium-sized entrepreneurs and chief execs. And my commitment is I'm involved in that. I will help. And with the team, we will aim to get you from a medium-sized business to a large one. We only have 7,500 large companies in the UK, and we have 168,000 medium-sized businesses. So we just need to help 7,500 of those medium-sized businesses to become large. And we'll have doubled the number of large companies, and that will do more than any government or anybody else to help our economic growth in this country.
Brilliant. That's such a great vision. Why do you think the UK has not been great in the scale-up thing? You know, what I mean, say what needs to be done, you're doing it, but why do you think we haven't been good in that area?
I think there's not enough access to capital. So I think we need more crowdfunding. We need more private equity and scale-up funding. I don't think our junior stock market, the AIM market, is working well enough. There are now only 700 companies that are listed there. Why can't we have several thousand?
Yeah.
And typically these entrepreneurs that we're talking to that are running mid-sized businesses would like to de-risk their life, pay off the mortgage and some of the debts that they had to raise in setting up the business, and then they would like some growth capital. So they're probably only looking for a couple of £1 million, and that's the sort of money that could come from listing on AIM. But the cost of doing it are £500,000. So we need to bring down that cost. So that would be one example.
And I like as well, you said you bought a magazine. It comes back to your paper theory, doesn't it? There's paper what you said about paper.
Absolutely. There's a digital version of Business
Yeah, of
Leader,
course,
but it's also available in WH Smith's.
Yeah.
And we also put out we have a newsletter and we put that out. And we also run a podcast ourselves.
I know. I have listened.
Great.
So what's it? I mean, you're kind of all what you've done. You know, like you say, you could have gone to your desert island, couldn't you? You could have. That's it. I've done it now. I've finished. But
I'd have been bored after 2 weeks.
Are you kind of addicted to the entrepreneurial life? Do you think that's what it is?
Yeah, it's a combination. And some of the people that know that I sold HomeServe for over £4 billion to Brookfield last year said, what are you doing in your retirement? And I laughed because I'm busier than ever because I'm now chairman of HomeServe. I'm really enjoying that. There's a exciting next chapter in HomeServe in how we decarbonize homes across the world through hybrid systems, through heat pumps and solar panels, but also want to spend the time that I've freed up a couple of days a week to invest in more businesses through Growth Partner. And I've got another £100 million I've committed to the team to find about another 13 really great businesses, but truly want to help our members within Business Leader to scale their operations.
That's brilliant. It's great to see. And just finally, you've given so much advice in this half an hour or so. But if you had to give one ultimate tip for people listening to this to take away as they stop listening, what would it be?
Yeah, I think I would. I'd give two. So in terms of the overall tip, I would say if I look back at my HomeServe career, I tried to do too much, too many ideas. We got into furniture warranties. We got into doing repairs for home insurers, and we got into smart home devices. And I would say stick to your core business model, evolve it over time. Constant evolution is great, but don't look for revolutionary ideas. Those are dangerous. Stick to your core and do it even better and even bigger. And I guess the other one would be if you are a listener that is running a medium-sized business, employing 15 or more people, turning over more than £3 million, then come to one of my free growth workshops. I run them in my home in Marylebone, in my dining room,
Nice.
for a couple of hours once a week. And you definitely benefit from hearing about the 8 secrets on how you too can build a business worth over £1 billion.
Brilliant. We've never had anyone offer a visit to their dining room on this podcast. What a way
There
to
you
end. Richard, thank you so much. From rabbits to magicians and everything in between. Thank you for joining us on the Small Business Sessions.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. You've been watching Enterprise Nation's Small Business Sessions podcast, powered by Business Connected and our partners Vodafone Business, Constant Contact, Dropbox and JP Morgan. If you've been inspired during this episode, head to enterprisenation.com/business connected to register for webinars and to access free business training. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.